Hi, I'm Jennifer and this is Kate, and April was a very good month for reading at our house.
Yes, we read some great books, so we're pretty excited for our What We've Been Reading recap today. So let's go ahead and get started.
We are starting off today with our book of the month from Sophia Institute Press, which is this one, Sanctify Your Soul by Father Leo Treese. Back in December, we signed up for the Book of the Month Club, so throughout all of 2023, we are challenging ourselves to read whatever they send us.
Which has been pretty easy so far because they've sent us a lot of great books.
Yeah, I was really excited when this one showed up in the mail because I am a huge fan of Father Leo Treese.
And this one did not disappoint, but it wasn't quite what we were expecting either, to be honest. The back of the book gives you a rundown of what you can expect inside, like how to cultivate a deep love for the Blessed Mother, and how to surrender to God's will for greater peace of mind and even better health.
And the book absolutely delivers on all of those promises. It's really very good. However, what you don't realize until you start reading the book is that this book was written by a priest, Father Treese, as a series of reflections for his fellow priests.
So a book by a priest, for priests, not a bad thing.
No, not a bad thing at all. In fact, I think it makes the book extra interesting because it gives you a really good look into the life of a priest, what it's really like, what they struggle with. One thing is for sure, it will definitely give you a new appreciation for your parish priest.
And the book will also have you laughing out loud. Father Treese is very funny. He has a subtle sense of humor that just sort of sneaks up on you, and he's not afraid of poking fun at himself.
One part that really made us laugh out loud was when he was talking about adoration. You know, he says it's very important to make an adoration hour at least once a week, and he talks about what he does during his and how it usually goes, but he also warns against having a sense of spiritual smugness.
So he says that sometimes we can feel extra virtuous because we happen to set aside some time in our day for Jesus.
Sometimes we go into the adoration chapel with an attitude of, "Here I am, Jesus, aren't you glad?" Which just makes me laugh so much because yes, I can definitely see myself falling into that trap sometimes, thinking, "Oh, here I am, Jesus, you're so lucky that I showed up."
So that's funny, but there's also a lot to learn from the book and a lot to think about. He has a whole chapter on dying and how we don't know when we're doing something for the very last time. So that is definitely very thought-provoking.
So this definitely was one of our favorite books this month, and I know that I will go back and reread parts of it periodically because it was just that good. But I also know that now every time I go into the Adoration Chapel, I'm going to be thinking, "Here I am, Jesus, aren't you glad?" So my first book is this one, How Catholic Art Saved the Faith by Elizabeth Lev, which tells a very fascinating story of how after the Protestant revolt, the Catholic Church used beautiful works of art to draw people back to the faith. During that time, many people were illiterate, they weren't well educated, they might not be able to read, but they could look at beautiful artwork and be inspired. So the Catholic Church definitely used that to evangelize during the Counter-Reformation and sponsored a lot of very famous artists like Michelangelo and Caravaggio and Gentileschi. They all created beautiful works of art, and their fascinating stories are all in this book. For instance, one of the artists I didn't know very much about at all before I read the book was Lavinia Fontana, and I just fell in love with her story. So she was a working mom. She was happily married. She had 11 children, and her husband was a stay-at-home dad. He took care of the children and the house so that she could work full-time as a painter. She was very famous in her day. She received many important commissions, including one from King Philip II of Spain for this beautiful nativity scene called The Sleeping Christ Child. She was also a great friend of St. Charles Borromeo, so beat that. Again, just such an interesting story. So this book drew me in right away with all its beautiful artwork, with all the stories behind them. This is a great one for art lovers, for history lovers. It would be a great homeschool, high school textbook, for art/history. So I definitely give it 5 out of 5 stars. And as a bonus, you can find this one and listen to it for free on Hoopla.
So my first book today is the only book I managed to read outside of school in April. and that is The Crystal World by J.G. Ballard. So I found this one at that big book warehouse sale we went to in this vlog. I was just browsing through the boxes and I came across this one, looked interesting, and I decided to pick it up. So the premise of this book, what's going on, is that there is a leaking of time, as the author calls it, that has caused different parts of the world to start to crystallize. So that's causing a lot of chaos and destruction, a lot of mass evacuations of different areas. But there is a certain group of people who are very interested in this crystallization. As the back of the book calls them, a doctor in pursuit of his ex-mistress, an enigmatic Jesuit wielding a crystal cross, and a tribe of lepers searching for paradise. So they're a very interesting group, I will say that. Probably the best way I could describe this book is by saying it's a bunch of lovesick people running around a crystallized portion of the West African jungle shooting at each other. That's my best description. This book is like reading a weird little fever dream. It kind of defies description. You have to read it to know what I'm talking about. I'm sure there's a lot of like symbolism and themes in this book that I'm just not getting. So it just ended up being kind of strange. Like, did this book add any value to my life? Probably not. Was it decent entertainment? Yes, it was. I was looking for something to break up my reading at the time, something different, and I absolutely found it. This has definitely been the most unique book I have read this year. It was a good change of pace. I just still don't know what to make of it yet. That's the problem, but I'm glad I read it. I might see what else he has written.
Next for me, I fell down a real Julia Child rabbit hole this April, and I'm not even sure why. It all started when I got this book from the library, her memoir, My Life in France by Julia Child. It was so good. And then it led me right into reading another book called Warming Up Julia, which is also really good. And that one gives just short biographies of all the different people that she worked with. Both books were completely enjoyable. So there is so much about Julia Child that I never knew before reading these books. I mean, I knew that she was a famous chef and she wrote a cookbook and she was on TV, but that was it. But there is so much more to her story, and it was so inspiring to me. For instance, I didn't realize that she and her co-authors worked on their cookbook for a full 8 years before it was ever published. They put their whole hearts and souls into this book without ever knowing if it would even be published. And then once it was in print, the publisher really did very little in the way of publicity for them. The cookbook market is pretty fierce now, and it was pretty fierce back then also. And it really fell to Julia and her co-workers to advertise the book. And Julia just took this in stride. She made all kinds of plans. She worked so hard to get the book out there and to get it seen. She did tons of cooking demonstrations. She traveled all over the United States. So I loved reading about how hard she worked. She was so passionate about her cause. She really believed in the book. I also love seeing all the photographs that her husband, Paul Child, took of her. He was so supportive of her work. He would even help her wash dishes after a photo shoot. So both books excellent. And so that has led me to put 2 more books about Julia Child in my TBR pile. One of them, of course, is the cookbook, Mastering the Art of French Cooking. I have not tried cooking anything from it yet, but I have certainly enjoyed reading all the commentary and looking at all the drawings. I know a lot of you out there also enjoy reading cookbooks, even if you don't cook from them. So I know I'm not alone in that. If I try anything from it, though, I will definitely let you know how it turns out. And then this one, France is a Feast, which contains many of the pictures that Paul took of Julia and her co-workers and of France. So it has all kinds of beautiful pictures in it. I love the pictures that he took of his wife. They had such a beautiful marriage. So I'm looking forward to diving into this one as well.
So my other book today is one that we read for school, and it is this one, Rocket Boys by Homer H. Hickam. So this one is a memoir, so it is the exact opposite of the other book that I read. So if you're not familiar with the author, he is a retired Vietnam veteran and NASA engineer. He's worked on all sorts of crazy projects. He's done shuttle missions. He's helped prepare people to go up to the Hubble telescope, all kinds of really crazy stuff like that. And Rocket Boys is his memoir about growing up in Colwood, West Virginia, growing up in this mining town. Like a lot of memoirs, he goes over all of his mishaps and adventures growing up. But most relevantly, he goes over how he got really interested in space and in particular building rockets and how that affected him growing up, what the town thought, building these rockets with his friends, what his family thought, the different relationships. It's a fascinating book. His story is so interesting, and it's so very well written also. But the book is also just really beautiful, I guess, is the story of patience and determination, of curiosity, of like the power of learning and just following through on your dreams and what you want to do. So we both absolutely adored this book, would definitely recommend it. 5 out of 5 stars.
My last book today is Archery Quest by Linda Sue Park, and I picked it up at a thrift store because I recognized the author and I knew I wanted to read more by her. A few years ago, we read her book, A Single Shard, for school, and we really enjoyed it. She also wrote A Long Walk to Water, but this one is a modern fantasy time travel book. We meet young Kevin Kim. He's 12 years old and he's just sitting in his bedroom one day when all of a sudden, out of the past, a young man with bows and arrows crashes into the room, and he says that he is Chumong, a legendary archer and ruler of ancient Korea. So that is all I'm going to say. I don't want to give away any spoilers, but I did learn a lot about Chumong and ancient Korea and the Chinese zodiac. The book has an overall theme of honesty and respect and loyalty, which is good, and of course a lot about archery. Now there is magic in this book, just a heads up. I know some people scream for that because let's face it, Chumong is from BC times. I mean, there was no Jesus when he lived, so of course he thinks that the only way I could have gotten into Kevin's time is through magic. So he and Kevin try to puzzle out what magic brought him there and what magic could bring him back home. So I was fine with that. You know, I like a little fantasy magic, Lord of the Rings, that type of thing. It's good here, but your mileage may vary. So I think this book is a great book for kids who like archery, for sure. Also, if you're doing a unit study on Korea or you're doing a geography study of world countries, this would be a fun addition. I enjoyed it so much more than I thought I would, and I have to say, I kind of missed Chumong now that the book is over. Never saw that coming.
So that is a look at everything we read in April.
So if you are reading along with us with the book of the month and you read Sanctify Your Soul, leave us a comment. What did you think about it? What was your favorite part?
And also let us know what some of your other great April reads were.
So we thank you so much for watching today. We hope you enjoyed the video and we'll see you next time.
Bye.